All right, we're going to bring on a guest in a couple minutes to talk about this, but let's go over the breaking news in the last 24 hours that Bud Black has been let go by the Rockies. He managed the team for a long time, almost a decade, but this will be a third consecutive 100-loss season. You can book that. There's a chance that this team is the worst of all time. He's replaced by Warren Schaefer, who will be the interim manager. He was the third base coach. Mike Redmond, the bench coach, is also out. Clint Hurdle is going to be the bench coach, who was just hired as the hitting coach a few weeks ago. I mean, what are we expecting?
This is what we were expecting. Not a fire. No, nobody wants to see anybody get fired. But I don't know. Like, it's not his fault. We said this. It's not Bud Black's fault. It's not Mike Redmond's fault. He's the bench coach.
Whose fault is it?
The people who brought in the players. Start with the owner, the GM, the president of baseball ops, all of them. The scouts. I mean, I hate to see people, the development guys, it's a systematic failure. They're in a tough division. The one big player they went on signed, Chris Bryant, he can't play because he's got a bad back, right? Their starting pitching has been horrendous this year. Even guys like, that they were counting on, Marquez, Freeland, those guys, they've been unbelievably bad. Dollander they've called up. He hasn't helped. Tovar's been out for pretty much the whole year. It's just a systematic failure. There's no other way to put it. Question for both you guys. Who's the Rockies All-Star? We had this conversation on Saturday. Who's the Rockies All-Star?
Cheater, you're going to look it up.
Me?
I'm going to say...
What is there to look up? I mean, you want me to do that on the fly with this team?
The reaction Scott had was like, McMahon? Brendan Doyle? Who?
I just had to think. Brendan Doyle or Goodrum? Goodman.
Hunter Goodman.
Hunter Goodman is. Yeah. I was thinking Nico Goodrum, but no. Hunter Goodman. I mean, he's putting together. He's putting together a good year. Like behind the dish, banging out dingers. But ultimately, it is a culmination of a lack of moves. You bring in a few pieces here and there. You don't address major weaknesses, and Bud Black's like, you know what? The guys really like me, but we can't keep a lead. We can't. And this year it's crazy. Their offense has been ice cold, or I think they went like 15 games without scoring more than 5 runs. A Colorado Rockies team without scoring more than 5 runs. Like that's like a Giants team that just is pitching in defense. Like that's a crazy stat for a Rockies team.
Bill Schmidt, who's running the front office, said, I think our guys are still playing hard. That's what I'm looking at. Guys are working hard every day. He basically said, I don't think we're at the point of firing Bud Black before Saturday's game. Then they lost 21-0. And then on Sunday, they fired Bud Black after they picked up a win. So let's talk this out right now. Patrick Lyons is a Rockies insider. He is joining us. Patrick, great to have you on. Ooh, where do we begin? How about Dave Roberts, who, was mentored by Bud Black for a long time, saying, I don't think Casey Stengel could change the outcome of that ball club, and that's not the manager's fault. So slice this one up for us. What's gone wrong and what possibly could improve?
Well, you guys talking about it before, we really hit the nail on the head with everything. It's been a systemic failure, from top to bottom, and a lot of those decisions come from owner Dick Monfort, and he's the one that's been pushing these buttons and was the one that wanted Chris Bryant to begin with, and now Bryant has been a part of 4 of the worst seasons in franchise history, the 4 worst seasons, and this one isn't even done yet. So there's been a lot of shortchanging various areas, various departments from this organization, and it's really just been a lot of complacency. And one thing you didn't mention that I know is really interesting to a lot of baseball folks is the fact that there's still 30 plus in the building on Saturday for a team on pace to lose 137 games. There was 38,000 people to go see Padres Rockies. So it's a little bit recession proof. And so despite the fact that I think the Rockies are losing some money right now, they're able to get away with it without making those grander changes. And this has really just been something that's been coming down the pike for the last couple years, and it's just finally reached a head.
You said shortchanging. I mean, there's so many things I want to unpack there, but the shortchanging, you got rid of Hensley Mullins. Bam Bam Mullins, the hitting coach. You got rid of PJ Pelletieri last year because you went from 3 hitting coaches to 2 when every other team has 3. Then you get rid of Bam Bam. You bring in Clint, who gets it back to 2, and now Clint's now the bench coach. Like, do they think that just people are going to just poof appear and take jobs that help players improve on a daily basis?
Well, that's that shortchanging, right? That's trying to save money on the periphery for coaches, and then some of their developmental people and folks working really multiple jobs within the organization. You mentioned something. AJ said something about president of baseball operations. They have a team president, but they don't have a president of baseball operations. I know that's something that they're discussing right now behind the scenes within the front office, of maybe adding a role like that to perhaps take away a little bit on the plate of Dick Monfort, or take a little bit away from the decision-making processes from him, because he has been really at the forefront a lot of these moves, and in hiring Bill Schmidt, who has done some of his bidding. He's tried to do his best for the most part, but I think, they've been handcuffed a little bit because of some of the decisions Dick Monfort has made, and some of the choices and some of the directions, I should say, that they've been wanting to go. And a lot of that does have to do with saving money and having less personnel. They said streamlining was the reason why they were going from the 3 hitting coaches down to 2. And it's despite the fact they're having, one of the worst offensive seasons in franchise history, they're not going to go back up to 3. You're right. They've got 1 now. They've got some other guys coming along the way, in Jordan Pacheco and Nick Wilson, but still they are shortchanging and not investing in the roster or in development as much as the other 29 teams in Major League Baseball.
Patrick, is this a owner failure then? Because I can't imagine that Dick Monfort would not want to go get players, right? Or is this and I say this all the time on this show, the Rockies have to do something different, right? They have to go back to the Blake Street Bombers and just say, we're just going to outslug it. We're going to try and win 60 home games a year and take our chances on the road and just bash people to death, or do something different, right? So is this a ownership failure? Is it a GM failure? It's not Bud Black's fault. I mean, Bud Black, say what you want about how he managed whatever, but it wasn't his fault. He's only given certain players. You can't make players do things they can. I know they're going to say different message, but is this more of an owner? This can't be a GM fault, so it's got to start at the top, and that's never going to change because he draws $3 million a year, and he's like, I'm cashing checks, I'm good.
Yeah, owner and GM obviously have failed, but to your point, I think Monfort has cut the legs out from underneath his general managers in the past. Again, the Chris Bryant signing, unilaterally coming up with the deal for Nolan Arenado. There was a trade back in, I think it was 2015, where they had an opportunity to acquire a big-time prospect for 2 months rental for Jorge De La Rosa. And Peter Gammons at the time reported that Dick Monfort stepped in and nullified that deal. And that prospect was Eduardo Rodriguez. And that's a guy that, if you put him into that Rockies rotation, that might have changed certain things, pretty quickly. So I think it's a lot of it has to do with Dick Monfort and that sense of control. And it's not really clear why he doesn't want to go out and have baseball people making the baseball decisions. With the amount of attendance that the Rockies get, Dick Monfort does a great job as a businessman, and he's very loyal. He takes great care of the employees of the organization and the players. But on the baseball side of things, he's not gifted at all in any way. And he just, refuses to turn the reins over to someone who does know what they're doing, or even go outside the organization. That was something that when Jeff Bridich stepped aside in 2021, Monfort did say that, we might have to go outside the organization, and we'll certainly look. After Bill Schmidt was appointed as the interim GM, he decided that, making one trade at the deadline, was a good enough job. And so Bill Schmidt continues to be the general manager. And then, the next trade deadline in 2022, Colorado was the only team that didn't make a deal ahead of the deadline. So there's been a lot of complacency, I think, coming out of ownership, and really much, if not all of the focus really does, lay on Dick Monfort's shoulders.
I've seen a theme with the historically bad teams in the last few years. They are losing significantly at the margins. Have you witnessed any players or any development issues within the Rockies that you can point out? I mean, the way it's described to me by players is that they'll go to most teams and it's a corporation, right? They've got information for them on what they can change. They've got amazing prep for them before every game. There's so many different resources and luxuries. And then they go to the Rockies and it's just a baseball team, They're like, just go out there and play. And that's how much of a difference it is. And the game has passed by Dick Monfort because he's the one that actually approved budgets to do things like this. Often these things are not super expensive in the grand scheme of baseball. It's like, hey, we should really have this thing that every other team has. It costs $200K. He's like, nah, we don't need it. So have you heard anything about that? Because that's the digging I've done. And I've heard that pretty frequently for a while now.
Well, Colorado certainly has said the quiet part out loud. And every time they bring in a new player, it's usually because he wanted to be here, not because necessarily, we need an addition here or we need an improvement. We need to step up in some sort of capacity. It's that this guy was willing to come here in a certain capacity. And so I think that speaks volumes to the Rockies kind of going by the wayside and being somewhat of a last resort for a lot of players. It was only a couple years ago that they put together a pitching lab at their facility down at Salt River Fields down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And even that is still years behind. It was after the 2019 season when they did immediate availability. And I think Bud Black said that, the team was probably 5 or more years behind everybody else in Major League Baseball in terms of analytics departments. And then from there, the analytics team dwindled down to where they only had one at one point. Towards the end of the pandemic. So they've reinvested in that just a little bit, but they certainly fall way behind pretty much what is considered to be the standard across Major League Baseball in just about every category.
Hey, FT fam, HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, Cam, because we're busy and we would like all of the ingredients to cook up something nice and make us look like elite chefs at home.
You know what I do? I've got kids in basketball, I've got soccer, I've got baseball. And when they get home, there's a fresh meal and they think, "Oh, Dad, he's so great." Well, no, it's not me. It's HelloFresh. It's nutritious. It's packed full of good nutrients. The kids have good energy, and they look at me like I'm the greatest dad in the world. So make sure you go grab that HelloFresh because you know what? It's doing my family all the good.
Cook up dishes like chicken Dijon and pecan-crusted trout, over 100 seasonal snacks, sides, and treats as well. Feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/FT10FM now to get 10 free meals with a free item for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
Do all the 3 million fans that come out to these games want the Rockies to win? Or have they done a good job of making it entertainment? Like you'd go to a concert and you're like, I want to hear a good concert, but I'm here for the vibes.
It's 100% vibes at this point. There have been people who've been longtime season ticket holders that have given up their season tickets. And it's pretty much considered to be the best outdoor sports bar in Denver, where people hang out up at the rooftop and it's totally packed. The beers are somewhat affordable compared to a lot of the bars in Lodo. And there was something that Purple Row, they do a wonderful job where they had someone go down and talk with fans. And some of them couldn't name any of the current players on the team. Certainly becomes a lot harder with Charlie Blackmon just having retired. Nobody knew any of the prospects. I've even heard tales of folks going up to the rooftop and asking, do you know who's even playing tonight? And that can certainly be a challenge when usually the fans are the ones that send the message to the front office that, hey, things need to change and we're not going to show up. But there continually are people that will take the place of those hardcore fans, either because they're transplants and continuing to move into Colorado, or because Denver is still relatively affordable. So no matter what team you root for, when the Padres come to town, the Padres fans travel really well. We even saw "Let's Go Tigers" chant during this past week. And I don't think folks from Detroit usually have that kind of income to be traveling and going to all kinds of various cities across the U.S., but yet they were able to go out and support their team in Denver. So it does feel more and more as these 100 lost seasons continue to pile up that it's almost a 50-50 break between people that are there to actually see the Rockies and people who are there to actually see the opposing team.
Well, there's a lot of teams that run into that problem, but from what you just said, I don't know if you heard us talking about this before you came on, but who's the Rockies All-Star this year? If you had to look at it right now, and how many of those fans could name the guy who is going to be their All-Star? Because I don't know who it is. I mean, you look at it, Goodman maybe would be the one, but there's a lot of good catching in the AL, so that's a rough spot to start. But who's their All-Star?
Right now, if you're looking at wins above replacement, Jake Bird is probably going to do that. And sometimes the All-Star teams will pick up a setup man and give that guy credit. In the past, I think Bud Black has been integral in getting the player that he thinks should go to the All-Star game, because usually it's 2 or 3 players that are kind of the best options. It was Herman Marquez's time in 2021, and so he ended up getting the nod. Elias Diaz was neck and neck with a couple other players like Ryan McMahon, but it was Diaz's turn to get it. Last year, it was McMahon's turn, and it really felt like this year, it still probably might end up being Brenton Doyle. That's probably where my money would go if I were a betting man, that he'll turn things around and be a little bit better. But now with Bud Black not there and not being able to talk with, the National League championship winner, the manager of that side, I really don't know. Jake Bird, Brenton Doyle, that's probably where it's going to end up being.
Did you see this coming? The Bud Black firing, in the sense that, or was it when Clint Hurdle came in, was it like, uh-oh, there's somebody prowling around here that has a chance to like supplant Bud? And did you think it was going to be Clint that was going to step in?
Not necessarily. It did seem like maybe the writing was on the wall when Clint was brought in just a little bit, and they could cohabitate and be fine. They're both, two professionals and respect each other. So that wasn't an issue. When Warren Schaefer was added to the big league coaching staff as the third base coach, it really seemed like he was going to be this heir apparent under the tutelage of Bud Black. And it was really only going to be a matter of time when that would actually happen. And, even when that change made and Bam Bam was let go as the hitting coach and, became the scapegoat, so to speak, for a lot of the organizational problems that they've been having. And Clint Hurdle came in. That was a surprise to me, because, again, it's very rare to lose 100 games in back-to-back seasons and then come back as the manager for year 3. So even that firing was a surprise. And then, on Saturday night with the 21-0 loss, it felt like when Bud Black left that room, that was probably going to be the last time that I saw him. And I think because Derek Shelton was fired, the Rockies operate almost as like the 29th, team 29 in every way. And as long as there's one team that's doing worse than them in some capacity, they can always point and say, well, at least we're not those guys. And as soon as Derek Shelton lost his job in Pittsburgh, it seemed like, well, the Rockies are now number 30. Bud Black has to be on the hottest seat. And with that loss, 21-0, 24 hours after GM Bill Schmidt said, hey, our confidence is with this guy, everything's fine, enough was enough. And they just had to do something different, despite the fact that it really is just lip service for a roster that isn't just going to get magically better overnight because there's a new guy in charge.
It was a good thing Tatis threw for 400 yards in that game against the Rockies to get to 21. I mean, that was unbelievable.
3 tutties.
Yeah, 3 tutties. All right. I mean, listen, we've beat that to death. It's not Bud Black's fault, and we also it's coming. But the White Sox slogan this year, as we've been told, is just don't be as bad as the Rockies. So welcome to White Sox land, Rocky fans. Now, what's the future? That's what I want to know. What do they do? Who do they sign? They're not going to sign. They've shown no willingness to go out and play in the free agent market. So what's the future? Because the Dodgers aren't going away. The Padres don't seem like they're going away. The Diamondbacks aren't going away. The Giants are now back in it with Buster Posey. How do they get back into some sort of, let's start with respectability before we even start talking about playoffs?
After 2021, when they lost Trevor Story and John Gray, and they had traded Nolan Arenado before that season, it was a rebuild. And the Rockies don't like to use that word rebuild, which seems ridiculous considering, how poorly they've played the last 3 years. They now need to rebuild again. And they don't even have a ton of trade chips right now because of how poorly they've been playing. So despite the fact that they can get rid of guys on 1-year deals, they're not going to get a ton in return. That's not going to improve their roster all that much. So it's going to take a much more larger organizational overhaul, which I'm not convinced they are committed in doing, but that would really be the only possible solution for them to get this thing back on track. And even then, if they were to do something like that, it might not be until 2029, 2030 that this team ends up getting themselves back to some little bit of respectability, because the guys that are in this clubhouse, they've suffered through it. They've been traumatized in many ways. Like Brenton Doyle, as great of a player as he's never been a part of a team that's lost 99 games or less. Like that's an unfortunate thing. And so, cleaning house slowly but surely and making some larger organizational changes, putting in a president of baseball operations, revitalizing the minor league system, because despite the fact that they draft high every year, they're not developing as well as they should be, despite considering themselves a draft and develop team. And as you guys know, you talked about it last year with the White Sox. They set a record for most losses, 121 L's, and yet they could only pick 10th in the 2025 MLB draft. The same fate is befalling the Rockies right now, because they can only select 10th in 2026, despite right now being on a 133 loss pace.
And that is the beauty of the lottery.
Welcome to the White Sox. Welcome to White Sox fandom, Rocky fans. Congratulations.
The lottery is great.
I love that they can't pick till 10th, because it should discourage tanking like the NBA does and other leagues do. Good.
Tanking.
You should have to try to win.
Yeah.
And by the way, let me just say this. If they break the White Sox record this year, which they're well on their way to do, gosh, it sucks to be a White Sox fan. We can't have anything nice. We set the loss record. They're going to lose it after 1 year. At least let us have it for a couple years.
You guys won in 2005. You've won in the 21st century.
Yeah, but still, at least let us have one nice thing.
You've got the Pope. Do you need more than
That's
that?
That's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, we win.
The Pope's an AJ fan.
Yeah, we win. Didn't you see him on our game on Saturday night? He was wearing my jersey. What do you want me to do?
He was at the 2005
World
Series?
What do you mean, no?
Did you guys do like a graphic or something?
Yeah, they made like him in my jersey.
Yeah.
Yep. Love it. Well, this was great. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone give Patrick a follow at Patrick D. Lyons, Lyons. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.